Yo guys, welcome to Ashton Fitness. Coming up in today's video is an interview between me and Yoga with Olive for her podcast, the Chat-Uranga Podcast. I was super lucky to be invited onto the podcast for an interview. This is the first interview for season 2 of the podcast, and I'll leave a link to the podcast in the description of this video so that you can check it out. It's on Spotify, so you can check it out when you're out and about and on the go. Also, while you're at it, go subscribe to Yoga with Olive's YouTube channel because she posts really helpful and informative and just amazing yoga content on YouTube. It's all free and she does full classes, so you should definitely check out her stuff if you're interested in that kind of thing, because she's super knowledgeable and she's a great person. So definitely check out her channel. Again, I'm going to leave a link to that in the description of this video. I'll stop banging on now. Make sure you listen to the podcast all the way through because we talk about some really interesting things to do with calisthenics and yoga and just how we approach both of our practices and just life in general. So it's a really interesting chat. Make sure you listen to it all the way through, and I will see you in the next video.
So welcome back, guys, to the Chat-Uranga Podcast. Today I have got Ashton from Ashton Fitness with me. So hello, Ashton.
Jeez, don't know. Hello, everybody.
Good to virtually see you again. It's been... When was the last time we saw each other? I think October 2019, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. I don't even know, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
It was pre-lockdown, that's for sure.
Pre-lockdown, when life was a little bit more normal. Yeah, we could travel. Yeah. So that was when we filmed together as well for your channel.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
that was brilliant.
Yeah, man. So I guess...
If your listeners haven't seen that, definitely check that one out because that one's sick.
Yeah, so I guess to give a little bit more background, can you tell everyone about yourself and how you've gotten here, like the journey over the past couple of years to be where you are now?
Boy, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I'll try and be as concise as possible. But I started calisthenics, which is bodyweight movement and bodyweight exercises with a gymnastics influence. I started that, I can't even remember what age, but what made me start it was, this was quite a while ago, this was maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, but what made me start it was I saw a video on YouTube of this guy called Hannibal for King, and he was this super shredded black guy in a park in somewhere in America, just unleashing all of these insane bodyweight movements. And I was like, this is actually one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, at the time, no one else was doing this. This was completely unprecedented. And he was like suspending his body in ways on these playground bars that was just like, I'd never seen it before. And instantly I was like, that's what I want to do. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, right, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start getting more into this calisthenic stuff. And yeah, it's just been a process of just learning more and more through people, through YouTube especially, which is why I got onto YouTube eventually, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, just learning calisthenics by watching people, by learning from people in real life. And yeah, that's how I got into it all. And I think it was in 2015 or 2016 or something like that, I decided to start my YouTube channel because I was like, actually, like, I'm at a level now where I can teach people this stuff, and it's changed my life so much for the better. Like, when I started doing it, it was just so transformative. I was like, I want other people to know how this feels.
Yeah.
So that was the motivation behind that. So I made my first video in uni, and it was a muscle up tutorial because that's kind of like one of those go-to skills that everyone wants to learn. Everyone wants to learn the muscle up. So yeah, unleashed that one to the world first time in uni. And then yeah, I was just like, right, this is what I want to do because this is great. I could potentially like show millions of people how to do this stuff. And yeah, since then, just been trying to grow the YouTube channel.
Sick. I've like seen you just like, there's so much content obviously out there. Like with YouTube, it is such a saturated market, but I don't know, the way that you present yourself, like not only on Instagram and YouTube, is so authentic to who you are, like in life. And I think that's why you get such a good reception from people, because you are you and you're being genuine in how you teach and how you show people, but also your message comes across like you just do genuinely want to help people. You've had such a positive experience from starting Cali that you want to just show the world and share like the gift of it to everyone. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And like that's something that I'm always so like I'm always so conscious of, like trying to be my authentic self, because it's so easy. And I've got a couple of videos on YouTube, man, they're so cringe. Like when I was trying to be this YouTube guy and I was like, yo guys, welcome back to my channel, back with another banger, and it's just so not me. And it's like, but I was just trying to kind of find myself, and so that's something that I'm always really conscious of, because yeah, I think it's really important to be like authentic on these kinds of platforms, because like that's ultimately what helps people like gravitate towards you and what you're doing. It's the authenticity.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'm really glad that comes across.
Yeah,
so
no,
you.
of course. And like of course it takes a little bit of time to like get to that stage where you feel like you've found your voice, because I don't know, it's such a tricky thing to see, because you see how one video and one channel does really well with that really kind of like clickbaity or like really like YouTubery kind of style, and you're like, do I play the game? Do I just do it in order to like get the momentum going? And then, but yeah, I think it's a certain type of individual to step away from like following the pack, and like depends on your level of like consciousness as to how much you then step into your own authentic self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, 100%. And that's an internal debate that I've had as well, because it's like, that's the thing about all these clickbait titles and all this kind of stuff like that. Like, it's kind of, to a certain extent, it's kind of, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this, but it's kind of effed up the game, because it's like there are so many clickbait titles now. It's like you almost have to do it, so that people click on your video.
Big time.
But I try not to, because I'm just like, this is just ridiculous. But like there's always like a certain element where I think, should I try that? So yeah, that's definitely a real thing.
I think.
But again.
No, I think like experimenting with it for sure is always like quite interesting, because I've even noticed with like yoga on YouTube is so heavily saturated, right? But the amount of like cringe stuff that I see, and I try not to watch it and then you create the comparison. So I try not to like watch stuff to compare to heavily. But like the amount of stuff that I've seen where it's like yoga for sexy arms and abs, and I'm like, I just want to like throw my head in the sand and never leave. It's just so cringe. But then it's so funny, because the algorithm obviously like boosts stuff like that. So you're like, well, I kind of have to play along to an extent, but I don't want to sell myself out completely.
Yeah, them ones. Yes.
So it's such a tricky game, but I don't know, you figure it out eventually, and yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question about how you find, because you said that obviously yoga is a very saturated kind of industry on YouTube. How do you carve out your own little niche within that and make yourself stand out?
Oh, interesting how you flip the questions around. I guess like with this kind of stuff, it's just teaching what I want to put out there, not because I feel like it's going to get the views or again boost my channel. A lot of the stuff that I do post out there, it's from me asking like my students, what would you like me to see? Especially right now, because I can't see them in person. I'm like, okay, what classes would you like me to do? So I can tailor it a little bit more to your needs. So it's kind of going on what like people say, but also stuff that I feel would be beneficial. So I think as well, not doing like overly complicated flows on YouTube, because you don't want someone to be like constantly watching the screen. At least for me, I want them to be able to like explore the movement for themselves, like take my guidance and instruction, but then almost like have their own awareness over how to move their body and adapt if they need to. So I think like not necessarily simple, but not much like overly complicated flows for the sake of it. But then also just useful stuff that I don't have the time to talk about in like your average 60-minute class. So things like the breath work is such a huge component. Doing like Q&As where I speak about my yoga practice and all the facets of that, but then also like my other movements that I do, or things like why we should use props in our yoga practice and things like that. So just kind of creating like more well-rounded and accessible content, just to show that there's more to yoga than just like the asana or the physical practice that we do. I don't really try to, because I'm not that interested, I really don't watch much like YouTube content relating to yoga at all, because I'm not that interested in it, and I feel like it could sort of like unconsciously bias me to put certain bits of content out there. And I'm like, you know what I mean?
I know that one. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm just going to fucking crack on and do what I want to do. So
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And I feel like you're probably under a very similar mentality, especially I relate heavily to what you said. You just want to put content out there that will inspire and that will help people. And that's like my main goal as well.
Good. Yeah. And just doing that alone, like just not even looking at other YouTubers and doing your own thing, that will produce unique content in itself. Like, so people see that and they'll be like, oh, Olive's different to whoever else I'm watching. Like, I like that. Like, and people really gravitate towards different. So yeah, it's an important thing to do that.
Yeah, big time. Which I guess kind of, not really, but loosely leads on to my next question. What is your like movement background then? Like, how, obviously you said how you got into Cali, but what was your training like, your movement practice like beforehand?
Well, before I really started getting serious about working out, I used to just do like press-ups and sit-ups in my room. And I would just do like, I don't even know how many, not that much, like probably between like, I'd probably do a maximum of 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 leg raises in my room every night. And then I started to kind of get a little bit more serious, but it was never really like, I used to like jump around a lot as a kid and stuff like that. Like I used to be into like I really liked parkour and stuff. I never did it like properly, but I used to do lots of stuff like that. Like me and my friends would always jump around in the playground. Like we had a reputation for it. So it was like, like I was always active, like always running around. How am I forgetting this whole part of my so I used to do gymnastics when I was a kid.
Oh, sick.
And I also used to do ballet. This is not something that a lot of people know.
No way. Fair.
Yeah, and I used to do it with the Royal Ballet because I got scouted by them.
What?
Because they came round to a bunch of schools in London, and it was like thousands of kids. And sorry, I'm gonna cough now. There we go, had to clear that out. But yeah, they came around to loads of schools in London, and it was basically, they were just kind of doing like a talent scout kind of thing. So they would make all the kids like do kind of just like silly little games and stuff like that. They were silly little games to us, but obviously to them they were like trying to suss out like who was capable kind of thing. And and then I got scouted through that, and then went to the next stage, and then started training in some like kind of like, I'll call it a facility. It sounds a bit dark to call it a facility. It's like we were then extracted to some facility in Brixton, but it was, I can't think of the name. It was like not a leisure centre, but it was kind of just like a hall. We were in a hall, and we were training in there, and then obviously got better in there, and then got moved on to the next stage, started training in the Royal Opera House.
Oh my God.
And then started training, progressed from there, and then got into the junior associates, which is the step before you go to this place called White Lodge, which is like a really like famous like ballet school, and that would have been like, if I went there, that would have been like, I would have been a ballet dancer now probably.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't want to because I didn't want to leave home.
Fair.
So yeah, but it was fun while it lasted.
That's so crazy. How old were you when that happened?
I was, when I got the offer to go to White Lodge, it was just before secondary school, so I must have been around like 10 or something like that.
Mad. That's so crazy. Fair enough. And how long did you do gymnastics for?
Can't even remember.
Fair.
It was that long ago, and so much of a distant memory. I can't remember.
Oh man,
but yeah,
that's so crazy. I love how like I also did gymnastics like from a young age, but honestly loads of people are like, oh, that's why you're so like flexible and like can do handstands now, and I'm like, no, not at all. Like I've only really learnt to do handstands in like my adult life, and I'm flexible not just from doing gymnastics at a young age, but like my anatomy and my hyperextensive elbows and knees. That's why. It's funny how people like immediately associate that to where I am now though. I don't know if you ever get that.
No, because I don't really talk about it that much. So yeah, people don't really say, but I can understand that they would say that. Because it makes sense. Like you can draw the link quite easily, but it's not necessarily that straightforward. But I do think that when you are active when you're younger, it does stay with you in some regards, like even if it's not like completely directly related, like it does stay with you. Like I've noticed that within people. So
yeah, definitely. I think it's like, it's such a good foundation to have, like going into your adult life, because you've always moved, you've always trained, and I think the discipline and perhaps even the motivation comes a little bit easier. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my 2 cents on that matter. So have you done any I know you've done like strength training, right, and like weightlifting?
Yeah. So my ideal combo is calisthenics and weightlifting, because I really love the two. I think calisthenics is a little bit more spiritual in a way, because it's just your body weight, and you form like a really tight connection with your body, and you get into a very particular kind of headspace when you're doing calisthenics. You really lock in, and it's almost meditative. But weightlifting, it definitely appeals more to my ego, because like I do it just for the size gains. I don't like, if I wanted to do stuff for strength, I would just do calisthenics, to be honest, because it gets you so strong. Like the strength that you get when you train calisthenics translates into gym. It doesn't work the other way around. Like you don't do gym and then get really strong at calisthenics. That doesn't work. But you can get really strong at calisthenics and then get really strong at gym. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. So but the gym, like the weightlifting stuff, that just appeals more to my ego, because I do have that side to me. Like I can be quite egotistical sometimes, and yeah, it's I just do it for like the size gains, for the aesthetics, for the appearance. So
of course,
that's why I do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like having the balance between the two as well, like you said, it sort of charges your different facets of who you are, your different like identities, and it's just a fun thing to do. You get like different benefits from both, which I guess this ties in nicely to what I've been sort of thinking about recently, and I did a little poll on this the other day. So what is your definition of natural movement then? Sorry to drop the bomb.
I've never even thought of that, but off the top of the dome, I would probably say natural movement to me is just moving naturally as you would as a human being. So not even, because some people would say like natural movement is stuff like what Ido Portal does, like all the animal movement and all, but to me that's not natural movement, because it's like no human walks around like that. You don't see a flipping businessman like at 6 o'clock in the morning on his way to work crawling on his hands, and like you just don't see that, because that's not how humans move, in my opinion. So it's just moving in a natural and fluid way that feels free and easy as a human, like doing basic stuff like walking around, like so you don't have any knee pain, like moving around, getting up out of your seat and just moving around in a free way so you don't have any back pain, that kind of vibe. I feel like that's natural movement. Why? How do you define that?
So this is like what I've been thinking recently. I think natural movement is so dependent on the individual, like for starters.
That's true. Like
hugely. So for me doing Cali, that's not natural because my body's just not used to that. Whereas me doing yoga is very natural. But I think also the state of what natural quote unquote is can be trained, because our bodies like naturally adapt to the stimulus we provide it with. So if I was to train Cali for the next like year, it would eventually become more natural to me, right? But then there's also the other argument of like the biomechanics. Like if your movement translates into how well you can perform daily tasks, like functionally well without limited strain on your joints, on your muscles, and you can just like crack on and do things like tie your shoes or like pick up your shopping without fucking injuring yourself, then surely that's helpful as well. You know what I mean? So I think my main qualm with it was that there's like quite an elitist group of people within the fitness industry who are always like, no, natural movement is only body weight movement. I'm like, bruv, no, it's fucking not. Just because we have like a bit of external apparatus does not mean that it's not natural. Do you know what I mean? So I was interested to hear from your perspective, obviously as someone who does both calisthenics and like weight training, what you would think of the two and like where you kind of sit. But yeah, very similar mentality.
Yeah, and I don't. I guess it ultimately depends on how you define the word natural anyway, which in itself is a fucking. Oh, sorry, I just swore. You might have to. You might just have to bleep that one out, which in itself is a deep question. But yeah, that's more of another question for another time, different podcast, maybe like some kind of like more philosophical podcast.
Oh my god, you could go so deep with that question, like endless routes, endless possibilities.
Yeah. Oh, here's a question that I wanted to ask you as well, because I know that you've been weight training a lot recently, and that's something that you really enjoy, and it's something that you have found has helped your yoga practice as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel that weightlifting is now like an essential part of your routine as a yoga practitioner?
For me personally, I'm definitely going to say yes.
Yeah.
Because so my relationship with like strength and weight training has changed like dramatically over the years. Like when we were at uni, it was mainly for like the aesthetic kind of reasons. Even my yoga practice back then was again for the aesthetics and being like, yo, look at these pretzel kind of moves that I can make. You know what I mean? But now the two are for like very different reasons. Obviously yoga is like a part of like my daily life, my teaching, it's my hobby, it's my passion. But I also do strength training because I love it, but also because it provides so much like counterbalance to my teaching and my practice. Like in normal circumstances, I could be teaching anywhere or even doing yoga upwards of like 4 hours a day. And that in part is obviously teaching, so I'm not always like doing the poses per se, but that is a lot of time for my muscles to be like passively lengthening and my joints going into ranges that, you know, we're not necessarily in control of actively. So my strength training has kind of like helped mitigate potential injury on like my joints and like my muscles. But it's also just made me so much stronger to when I now like teach, especially doing things like in yoga, there's like so many push movements. We don't have any like pull movements at all. So what happened? Like nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So what had happened to me about, I remember actually messaging you about this. I was like, fuck, Ashton, help me. Like, my shoulder's got an impingement. What do I do? Because of like your experience, which we will touch on in a sec. So I had basically like impinged my right shoulder and I couldn't lift it above shoulder height pretty much without there being like excruciating pain. And I was like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to teach? And basically what had happened through me teaching, I got very strong and over-dominant pec muscles, but the muscles in my upper back were insanely weak. So my shoulders like naturally rounded. I didn't have support for my scapula. So then over the process of me training, like specific weight training and doing more like pull-ups, doing bench press, I've actually been able to strengthen my upper back muscles, like loosen off my chest and like rehabbed my shoulder injury. So everything's a little bit more balanced now. So yeah, I do the two because not only do they complement each other, but it keeps my body in check and it keeps it healthy, especially because I have like hypermobility. So like my knees and my elbows, those joints in particular need so much more stabilization than I guess like your average person. So that's another reason why I do what I do.
Yeah, and it's so important. Like I guess we'll touch on it in a moment, because you said that you got some questions for me about that. But yeah, like training those back muscles, training those like muscles that support your shoulder, so important. So important.
Big time. And it's just not spoken about enough. And no, like it really isn't. Like the shoulder is such a complex joint. I know it's nothing in comparison to like perhaps the hips or the spine, but it is something that you need to look after, like big time. And especially I see it so often in my students, the ones who only ever do yoga have just like winging scapula, and I'm like, oh my days. I'm just like, let me train you at the gym. Just let me help you build some strength there, because I go on about it enough, and I speak from like fucking experience. I'm saying these things not to sound like a bitch, but to improve the longevity of your practice, you know?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but I can see how it's sometimes intimidating to hear that from like a younger individual.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones as well, because you can't see your scapular winglet, like, and especially if you don't know what that is, you would have no idea that that's happening anyway.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't even know like that it was happening, and you wouldn't know what to do to fix it. And it's also one of those ones where you hear about, so like because I remember when I first started, I would hear more experienced people saying stuff like this, like, you need to train these muscles, you need to stabilize your shoulder, and I was just thinking, oh, that's just because you're like older, like that's just because like your body's already degenerating. It's like, flipping out, I'm young, man, like I don't need to worry about this shit. And then and then it hits you, and then you get clapped off with a shoulder injury, and then you're like, oh, I should have listened.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone is listening, and like I said, we'll probably go into more detail in a moment, but if anyone is listening, like whether you've got a shoulder injury or not, like especially if you don't want one, so just do the preventative exercises to prevent stuff like that happening, and just keep your shoulders stable, man, because you need your shoulders for so much, almost everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
especially when it comes to like, I think with everything, it's just having a balance between the two and not pushing so hard just for the sake of like, I don't know, numbers on the weights or to get into a certain pose. Do you know what I mean? I think this translates quite well to like both of our practices. Like ego training, whilst it can have its benefit in terms of like aesthetics, it can be so detrimental to like your actual like body's health.
Yes.
So it's just having that awareness. And of course, I can say all of this, but it's up to the individual at the end of the day to perhaps maybe experiment on themselves and make the mistakes to like learn from it.
Yes. Experimentation. That is the key.
Yep.
That's what no one wants to do. No one wants to experiment. Everyone wants to be told the exact rest time, the exact reps, the exact movements, the exact... Experiment, because you're different. Like everyone's different. Everyone's got a different body. Everyone responds to different exercises differently. Different things work for different people, so you have to experiment to know what works for you. Like some people in terms of like building muscle, for example, like for some people high reps really works, and some people will swear by high reps. They'll be like, oh, I've seen bodybuilders being like, I only ever do 20 reps on a set, I never do like 1 to 5 reps. And for me, that doesn't work at all. But the only reason why I know that is because I've experimented with different rep ranges. So it's like, people need to experiment. That's one, you hit a very important thing there. Like people really do need to experiment. Like, and don't be afraid to experiment, because you will find out what works for you, your individual. Like someone's training plan might not work. Like you'll see one of your favorite influencers, they'll be like, oh, do this, that might not work for you. So it's like you have to try it, but try other things as well and see what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's maybe a product of the culture we're in right now. It's like so easy to have like instant gratification, do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh my god, can you just tell me your 5 best things to get into a handstand? I'm like, bruv, it's not that easy. It's really not, especially a movement like handstand, when it just doesn't involve like your physical abilities, it involves your mental and emotional abilities as well, you know. It's getting over that fear.
You're so right.
So it's like, whilst you could have all the physical ability and strength in the world to get up into handstand and hold it, if you are fearful of falling over, that's going to be something that you're going to have to work on. So the 5 like drills that I've given you go out the window.
For real.
So and it's really interesting. Like I get the amount of DMs that I get, and I'm sure you do as well, where it's just like, what are your like top drills? I'm like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. And like you said, it just comes from like experimenting. And if you really want something at the end of the day, you will take time and energy to put into that, you know. You're the only person who can drive your motivation at the end of the day. So it's like honing in on that.
Exactly. For real.
So tell me about your shoulder injury, the one that happened a few years ago.
Oh dear. Right, so this shoulder injury was, oh my days. So anyway, what happened was I was in Vietnam and I was riding a motorbike, and in Vietnam they let you ride a motorbike without a license because that's just how it runs. And obviously I didn't have a motorbike license, so I don't even have a driving license. So I was just like, let me just take it out to this cave, because I wanted to go to this cave. It looked so wavy, and it was actually sick. But yeah, I took out this motorbike and yeah, I was riding along, but I was also going through some emotional stuff at the time.
Sure.
So it was like I was kind of riding it a little bit too quickly and a little bit kind of recklessly. And I turned onto this dirt road, but because I was riding it a little bit too fast and I completely underestimated how slippery like dirt and sand is, I tried to turn, but the tires just slipped from underneath me, so I landed on my shoulder. And the reason why I'm laughing is because as I fell, I screamed. I screamed. And this car, like, there was this car of people, they were all like Vietnamese locals. They saw and heard that happen, and then they came down the road to see if I was okay. But the driver was like, he was concerned, but then the guy in the back, he was laughing because he must have obviously seen and heard me scream as I fell. So I don't even know why I screamed. Like, normally I'm not really, well, I do scream a little bit, but yeah, I don't even know why I did that. But yeah, so anyway, I landed on my shoulder and I didn't think anything of it at the time. But when I got home, no, actually on the day after, I woke up and it was feeling peak. But I was like, oh, it's all right, like it'll probably heal up in a couple of days. I just give it some time. But couple of days turned into a couple of months, and then a couple of months turned into a couple of years. And yeah, it just took so long. In the end it took 2.5 years to heal. And yeah, it was just the most grueling, soul destroying process ever. Of
course.
Because obviously I lost all my calisthenics skills that I'd worked years to get. I'd lost all my strength, and this was when I just started to take YouTube really seriously as well. So I was like, right, I'm really gonna make like something of this channel. And then this happened, so it was like a real crushing blow. So yeah, it just took 2.5 years of just rehab exercises and really slowly rebuilding to get back to a level where, yeah, I was kind of back to where I was, if that makes sense.
Of course. And you know, as much as people can say, oh, you know, you get so many learnings and experiences from having injuries, it's like, of course, I learned like loads from it, but don't discount those fucking years where I was like struggling, not only physically, but like mentally. I can imagine the toll that it took on you.
It was deep.
Yeah.
Like I fell into the maddest depression, like the deepest, darkest depression. It was actually peak. And also at the time, like, it was me coming back trying to find a job after having graduated as well, and I wasn't prepared for that struggle either. So it was like, shoulder was destroyed, couldn't get a job, was dead broke. At one point I had £7 in my bank account. I was, it was dark, man. And it was like piercing UK winter as well, and it was just like, this is actually overwhelming. Like, it was nuts. So yeah,
what a fucking like kick in the teeth. Like, oh cool, you've just finished uni, here you go, here's the real world.
Yeah, oh boy. And it was mad as well, because obviously everyone gets you gassed, like in the lead up to uni and during uni. Like, everyone always, I don't know where we get this myth from, like everyone's always like, and it's always the older people who tell you this, it's like, you can get a job instantly, once you get that degree you'll just walk into a job. No, it is not like that, because you actually need experience, and no one hires you without experience. So it's like, you really have to get that experience up. But I didn't know that. So I was just thinking like, oh, I will just walk into a job, and it really wasn't like that. So even just that realization in itself was just like, that was a bit like, oh wow, okay, this is not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, big time. I had the exact same thing. I was like, oh cool, everyone's going to want to hire a psychology graduate, you know. I'm passionate about mental health. No one wanted to fucking hire me. I needed to have experience. I was like,
yeah.
Well, where am I going to get it from?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was like, yeah, I remember that time just being, I think up until that point as well, like you've kind of had your whole life like mapped out for you. You know exactly where you're going to be. Like in September, you're going to school, you're going to uni, you've got your academic year set in front of you. And once you step out of that, it's like, oh shit, where am I going now? What are like my next few stages? And of course, like notoriously, you're gonna have someone you knew from uni being like, yeah, look at me in my grad job, everything's really cool.
I know. Oh man, that was like, how did that happen? Like,
I don't even know. But then, you know what, I look back and the people who got those grad jobs, they are still in them. And they are working 9 to 5, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really fucking happy with where I am and my decision to not have a grad job. Not that it was my decision to not have a grad job, I just didn't get one. But but you know what I mean? It's like, no, actually there are other ways to like earn your income and survive and do something meaningful.
Yes, for real. For real.
Yeah, for sure. So you said on your story yesterday, now touch on this if you want to, obviously no pressure. You said that, and again, this was something that like really made me smile when I did see it. You said you've got kind of like another little bit of a shoulder injury going on. So it's like your motivation's been killed to train and like make videos, like totally understandably. But you said, I'm making a comeback, not for myself this time, but for you guys. And I was like, fuck yes, Ashton. That little change of perspective is so refreshing to see. And again, it just kind of shows the kind of person, the kind of coach you are, where you do just genuinely want to help people and show them the practice. So
yeah, for real. Because like basically the backstory behind that one, again, trying to be as concise as possible, is so after 2.5 years of literally giving everything I had to recover from this original shoulder injury, because it was so bad I couldn't even hang from a bar anymore. Bearing in mind, I went from doing like human flags easily, like all of these super advanced calisthenic skills with ease. I went from that to not even being able to hang from a bar, not even being able to do sit-ups because of the pain in my shoulder, not being able to run because of the pain in my shoulder. Like, it was just unreal. So I went from completely rebuilding from -1, because it wasn't even starting from scratch. Like, to me, starting from scratch would be being able to hang from the bar at least. Like, I was starting from -1. So it took every ounce of perseverance, dedication, motivation, everything I had to recover from that. And it was 2.5 years solid of that, just always staying on top of it. And immediately, as soon as that shoulder healed, my other shoulder started to play up. Really? And I could recognize the same feelings, like almost exactly the same thing that happened in the original shoulder. But I think it happened this time because of just so many years of overcompensation, because I had obviously been putting more stress and pressure on one side to compensate for the weakness in the other side. So I think that's what happened. And this most recent one, like, I could just feel the shoulders just starting to get worse and worse, and it got to a point where I just had to stop like training properly, because it was like, this is getting too painful and I can tell it's not getting better, so it's obviously getting worse. So and obviously that coincided with loads of other things, obviously the lockdown and obviously the background stress from that. It coincided with a lot of family issues that I was having at the time. It coincided with I had a major work deadline, so I couldn't, like, it was just really full on. Of course. And it coincided with me having to move out because of these family issues, and finding like this all happened over Christmas as well. So it was like it was just mad. Like, so the stress alone, and just like, it was just like I couldn't, and especially just already having I was already feeling quite depleted because I'd used everything I had to recover from the original injury. So I was just like, yeah, I just can't. For a month or two, I was just like, I don't know if I can do this again, because it was too much the first time, but somehow I managed to pull through. But this time, I don't know, like I really don't know how I'm going to have the motivation to do it.
Of
so
course.
I actually just basically, for a month, I just stopped working out completely. And then for the other month after that, I was kind of just working out here and there, but not really seriously. And to me, if I'm not doing something seriously, if I'm not doing it properly, I'm not doing it at all. Like, that's how I see it. So yeah, I kind of did that. And then it was kind of like during that time I was just thinking about my role as an influencer and all this kind of stuff, and thinking about, because I had built, by this time, like my YouTube channel had grown to like 30,000 subscribers or 35 or whatever it was at the time. So I was just like, actually, like I've got quite a big platform, and I can affect like a lot of change to a lot of people. Like by this time one of my videos was already on 1 million views. So I was like, okay, so 1 million people have seen this thing that I'm doing, but more importantly, 1 million people have learned how to do something new, and I could have potentially changed 1 million people's lives. So I was like, okay, I've got a responsibility, and I actually need to use this platform for good. And I need to actually help people because I'm in a position to do it, and that's why I started. So I was like, all right, cool, so let me just try and get back on track.
No, go for
this
it.
time. This time, like, it's not about me, because the first time it was all about me. Like I was like, I need to get better for me, like I need to regain what I had, I need to do this for me, blah 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 blah. But this time I was like, no, this time I actually have, like, I've got like nearly 40,000 subscribers now, so it's like I need to get better so that I can set out what I intended to do originally, which was to help people. So yeah, I got a little bit lost in the sauce at first, but now I'm back to help because I have the ability to do that. And that's not like it. I hope that doesn't sound egotistical. It's just the truth. Like, I do genuinely have the ability to help people. So yeah, if I have that ability, it would be selfish to not do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, big time. Like, you have such a unique gift, and not just your skills in terms of how you got to where you are, but also the very fact that, like you said, you started from -1. So it's your understanding of calisthenics can come from a place of like, well, I started from nowhere, so if I can do it, then anyone can do it. Do you know what I mean? So your coaching skills is going to be so much better than someone who's never like experienced that.
Yes.
And your understanding, your ability to empathize with your clients, or like you said, your subscribers, is going to be so different. So how you then say that in your videos, that just makes you more unique. So it's not, I don't think you're being egotistical at all, because you have a very unique approach to your coaching and just your experience with such. So and that will like obviously shine through. And no, that's really interesting.
You're so right about that, and that was one of the coolest things to have come from this experience, because it was like I got to a point when I was first training, I didn't really, like, I lost that kind of contact with like beginners and how they would feel like just to start out with calisthenics, because I got so good that it was like I forgot how it felt to be a beginner. So I just assumed that everyone could do like 10 push-ups, because I was like, oh, that's easy. But after going through this, I was like, oh yeah, like this is how people who have no experience in this background, because like I said, before I even started calisthenics properly, I was still doing like push-ups and sit-ups in my room, so at least I had some kind of grounding. But I was like, okay, so this is how people with no grounding must feel. Like the people who can't hang from the bar, like this is how they must feel. So now, like before, I would never have done like a workout for absolute beginners, but now, like just last week even, I uploaded an L-sit workout for absolute beginners, because I'm like, okay, cool, not everyone, because I thought like the L-sit, I used to think that everyone could just hold a tucked L-sit like it was nothing. Like, I didn't realize that was a hard thing to do. So like now it's good, because like you said, I can empathize with beginners, I can see where they're coming from, and now I know like what you can do to build up your strength from scratch, which is a very valuable thing. So yeah, you're right.
100%. And yeah, I think a lot of people or a lot of coaches perhaps don't have that level of like expertise. This is why you see so many like carbon copy fitness programs out there, you know, that are for like everyone, and it's like no. So yeah, very interesting to hear. But even I guess your shoulder now and the work that you're doing to like help it, I guess maybe why, I don't know, this is just like my understanding of your situation. Perhaps why it's more taxing is because when you first had your first shoulder injury, you didn't know how long it was going to last to like rehab and recover it. And now you've already been through it once. It's like, shit, do I really want to go through another like 2.5 years of that? Do you know? Which is like, I think in a very similar kind of way, this is why this lockdown, at least for me, is like just shit. Because last lockdown, the very first one, it was more novelty and it was like, oh, when is it going to end? This one, it's like, really? I don't want to do another like 4 fucking months of this.
Yeah.
But from everything that I've learned, sad learnings from this lockdown is that it is like a day at a time, and the best we can do is to be present to our like current needs and just make sure that they are met, so that we have like the grounding to deal with the rest of the shit that goes on. yeah, for real. And one of the best coping strategies that I found, and this might help you and just might help anyone else who's listening, but it's just to find positive distractions, like, because positive distraction. Okay, so you have one level of positive distraction where it's just kind of like a positive distraction that can kind of just help you pass the time, like playing a game or something like that. And then you've got another level of positive distraction where it's actually kind of building you as a character as well and developing your skills. And I think it's nice to have a balance of both, but especially the ones that develop you. Those are the best, because obviously you're developing yourself, you're building yourself, you're using this time to actually build on yourself. So it's like, if you can find any distraction that is good for you and helps to build you up, like people are doing baking, people are doing cooking, they're learning languages, like I've been playing a lot of guitar. I've been also like making beats as well and stuff like that. So just find some kinds of distractions that are healthy distractions that make you feel good and pass the time. And if they can build you up as a person, then that's even better. But yeah, just try and find as many as you can. Because I've in this lockdown I've been doing stuff that I didn't think that I'd do before, like making beats. Like I never thought that I'd do that. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Just try and find some like fun distractions, just to help pass the time. Sick. No, I do like that. And it's like, the distraction doesn't have to mean you're being productive as well, you know. It could just literally be a new activity or whatever it is, like so whatever that might be, which kind of like, I guess, leads vaguely into like my next point, because you did touch on it briefly earlier when you were saying when you do Cali, you feel like you enter quite a like meditative kind of state. So obviously that's what happens when you practice. Do you ever like meditate yourself?
No. I mean, I have done before. And I was doing it a lot when I went to Thailand, because I just felt like that's a very spiritual country. Like you feel it in the air. And I was just, and it's not even like I wasn't doing it because I thought it was like, you know, when you go, like you get a certain type of person who goes, and I'm not criticizing anyone, but you get a certain type of person who goes to somewhere like Thailand and they think that they have to be like really spiritual because they're on like this kind of like thing. I was just like, no, like I just genuinely feel like I want to do this. So I was doing that a lot there. But now here, I don't really do it that much in the UK. And the reason for that, I should do it, but the reason why I don't is just because I do it when I feel at my best, rather than, because some people kind of use it as like a thing to help them get through bad times, but I don't want to associate the niceness of meditation with bad times, if that makes sense. It's like when you listen to music, like if you listen to a certain song when you're going through a very bad period of your life, whenever you hear that song again, you're going to be reminded of that period of your life. Like there are certain songs I can't listen to anymore because it's just like it hits me too much in the feels. So it's like I don't want that to happen with meditation. So that's why I don't do it too much here. And like a lot of people have been saying, oh, meditate to help you get through the lockdown, but I'm like, I don't want to associate meditation with the lockdown. Like, so like I don't, and again, like, a lot of people, maybe I'm wrong, because I'm sure like it would help, but I just don't, me personally, I don't want the association. So yeah, I'll do it when I feel good, but I don't do it regularly.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, I'm not exactly drawn to it right now. I feel like sometimes I just need to sit in silence and just do nothing and close my eyes. But for me, like, personally, I find meditation really, really difficult. So to constantly have people like in my ear being like, you should meditate, it would really help you. I'm like,
yeah, it's actually refreshing to hear you.
A little bit insane.
It's really refreshing to hear you, of all people, say that as well.
I mean, yeah, I think there's just this like common misconception that like as a yoga teacher I instantly can meditate for like hours on end. I'm like, no, I really, really can't. Like, that's just not who I am. I've not had like great experiences with meditation either, so you know, I can't really practice that. I'm better off just like sitting in silence and not really calling it anything, or just having some kind of detachment from my phone or screen time or the hecticness of like everything that I have to do. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Do you know what? I thought you meditated all the time, you know? I thought you did, because I was like, you're so chilled and you're so zen. Even the way you speak, I actually really admire it, because the way you speak is so chilled, and that's just reflective of you as a person. Obviously, I know that everyone's got their own inner anxiety and all this kind of stuff, and it will all come up. But to me, like from an outsider's perspective, like I see you and I see like how calmly you speak, and I see just how calmly you move, and like how your aura is. And I'm like, I just thought that you meditated like all the time to achieve that. So yeah, that's impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. No, it's funny because like, I am a pretty like chilled out person, like for the most part. Of course I have, like everyone does, like things that like stress them out. But I guess like, yeah, just through my teaching, I've been able to like mellow myself out.
Yeah. And
I remember actually like when you came here to film. So yeah, we'll touch on that a little bit more, guys. So October 2019, Ashton came over to mine and we filmed a video for his channel where it was like, I try yoga for the first time. Something like that, wasn't it? And we just went through a bunch of different postures, from like standing to seated to like back bends and stuff, and just kind of pushed you to your limits, see where we got. And it was really fun. So yeah, like I'll put the links and stuff like below. But I remember you saying to me like, Olive, you're so chill in front of the camera. I was like, yeah, bro, this is I'm just like just cracking on as normal. But I do understand how, I think when I teach on my YouTube channel, it's very easy for me because it's like me teaching on like Instagram Live, which I've been doing now for like close to a year. It's a very similar kind of process, and to me teaching yoga comes very naturally in terms of like the cueing and everything like that. So I don't have to script anything, and even the editing is like super easy. It's all in like one take kind of a thing. But I have like a newfound appreciation for YouTubers and how much fucking time you guys spend like scripting and editing, getting the lighting and the angles right. Like, oh my days, it is a whole fucking job in itself. So
it's tough.
Yeah. Can you like give me a little bit more insight into, I guess, your practice and how everything gets set up to make the outcome of the video?
So just to start off with, just to put everything into perspective, like a video can take as long as, it can take anywhere between like 8 to 16 hours to make a video. So it's like, it's pretty full on, and you just would never know that, because obviously kind of like as YouTubers, there's an implicit association with YouTubers, and it's kind of like, oh, you kind of think that because they're doing YouTube it's kind of easy, but it's actually not. So first of all, you have to film the content, and filming in itself is challenging because, again, I'll try and be concise, but it's challenging, especially when it comes to doing something like calisthenics, because you have to make sure your form is perfect. If your form is not perfect, for two reasons. Firstly, because it's important to show good form for beginners who don't know any better. And secondly, because if your form's not perfect, people will criticize you, and they'll be like, look at how you're doing that. you're doing it with dead form, so it has to be perfect form. But in order, so you have to film a video, and say you're filming a tutorial for a particular skill, you have to show that skill from different angles so that people can see what it looks like from different angles. So that means you're performing that skill multiple times, and to perform a very advanced calisthenics skill multiple times with perfect form is insanely difficult.
Of
like
course.
It's really hard, and ideally as well, you're trying not to shake too much, because obviously like you're trying to show people like how to do it. So obviously if you're learning from someone who's shaking, like looks like they can barely even hold it, it's like, okay, like it's not really a good look. So you got to really like have it down.
Of course.
And that means you've only got a certain amount of attempts to do that, because if you don't nail those takes, bear in mind you have to get the right angle, you have to make sure the lighting's decent, you have to make sure, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you don't get those takes, then you can't film that skill again until the day after or a couple days later, because you just don't have the energy or the strength to do it. So and then of course if you're showing progressions, then you've got to go through all the progressions. So you end up, so for the video that I was doing, that I was filming for this week, I ended up doing like 30 sets of like these advanced calisthenics movements. And it was like, it's full on. So it's but it's fun, like, but it's much more challenging than a lot of people realize that it is. And then that's just the filming, and then I do scripts as well for a lot of my videos, so I make sure, like, that's just because I want to make sure that I convey the information in the best way possible. So again, script writing can take anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, and then you've got to edit. Editing is by far the longest process. And that takes hours and hours, depending on how complex you want to get with the video. And like the whole process. And then it's not done then, because then you got to upload it, and then you got to do the description, and then you got to do the tags for the videos. And obviously, like, you got to be smart and you got to be tactical if you want your channel to grow. So you've got to make sure that you're doing a little bit of keyword research as well, getting in some key terms in your description and in your video tags. So that takes time too, because you've got to do the research. You've got to find out like what keywords people are searching for when it comes to the thing that you're doing. So it's a lot of work that goes into a single YouTube video.
Big time.
It's a lot.
I remember like naively thinking, I think about the time that actually you came over and filmed, I was like, I reckon I could like start a YouTube channel and get like, you know, a video out every week. And I was like, totally. And then I started getting into it a little bit over the first lockdown. So I think maybe June was the first upload to my YouTube channel, and then I did like a sporadic few. But then since like mid-November, I've been more on it with my friend Sylvia. She's like been a massive help for me. We've been getting like 2 out a week, like one obviously public,
Sick.
and then one like unlisted. So that's how I can like earn right now from YouTube. But my God, like I didn't fucking realize how taxing it is as well. And because I film like 2 classes in a day, my voice and my body and my brain is like, oh my God. By the end of it. And like you said, it's not just, okay, the filming is done, great, it's the editing. Okay, bearing in mind the editing for me doesn't take like, it's not overly complicated, and yes, like Sylvia does help me with that, but like you said, it's also the Instagram prep, making sure everything is like set up for that. And even oh man, but you were so right, the description takes so long. My other friend Silka came over because she also does like YouTube for a living, and she was helping me with like the SEO stuff, so the tags, the thumbnails, the description, and she was like, make sure you use these keywords in the like title, description, the hashtags. And I was like, holy shit, it's just stuff that I never even thought about. And if she didn't tell me, then I just wouldn't have known.
For real.
So it is like, it's a complete job in itself. And like you so rightly said, it can take upwards of like 16 hours or more for just one video. And I know, like, granted, yours is so much more complicated than mine, but like, fuck.
But even so, like you sorry, I had to quickly change my position because my laptop was dying. Even like relatively, in inverted commas, simple looking videos, there's a lot of work that goes into those too.
So
for sure. Even if it's not even if there's not as much complex editing going on in those, like they still take a lot of work. So yeah, don't diminish your abilities.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, even like the other thing I was thinking of when you were saying, you know, with your prep, it's even the warm-up off camera to get yourself ready. Because you're not exactly just going to go into it like completely cold, because then you're just going to injure yourself. And it's like, yeah, and it's like the same for me. I'm like, when do I eat? Do I eat before? Do I eat after? And all of this, like hydration. And I remember Callum said to me, he did one of like my early videos. He was like, Olive, do you put your breath like in throughout the class? I was like, no. I was like, no, that's me breathing well heavy because I'm trying to teach and move at the same time. So yeah, it was well funny. But yeah.
And we really put our necks, like I guess, well, tell me if this is the case in yoga, but like sometimes we really put our necks on the line for our subscribers, because like one time I was filming a bent arm planche tutorial and I had to stop filming it because I actually injured myself during the tutorial because I was showing people what not to do. And through showing people what not to do, I actually fucking injured myself. So it was like fucking hell, like this is literal like blood, sweat and tears now. Like we're really doing this like for you guys. So yeah, there's that element to it as well.
Oh, big time. Yeah, there's so the amount of times I'm pretty sure I've filmed and I'm like, oh god, I just tweaked something that really hurts, or just like just trying to talk in a position that you just shouldn't talk in as well. And just like the strain. I think a lot of it as well for me is when I talk and teach too much, I don't use like my diaphragm voice, I use my throat voice, so everything in my throat gets super dry. And I know you know a lot about this because you sing, but yeah, I'm just like, I need to get better at talking from my diaphragm and not just my throat all the time.
Yeah,
so,
for real.
Yeah, a lot to think about and a lot of stuff that goes in. And yeah, I do want to continue it because I do really enjoy the process of it. And I think as well, as someone who's in an industry where it's very much reliant on being like in person, like in theory, yoga should never have to have been brought online. You know what I mean? Like it's you're just missing so much out there. And you could say that about the fitness industry in general, but I do get that you kind of need that in order for people to have like a wider accessibility to whatever it is. But what I have realized and what I'm grateful for is that in the past, when I like created a really fun flow, really cool sequence that I was so stoked about and felt great teaching, I'd have like max 12 people experience it. Now it's like, ooh, the possibilities are endless. Anyone can experience it. And I've got this like backlog of things that people can do whenever. And that's a really exciting kind of prospect.
Yeah, that is. And again, it's just another way just to spread what you can do with the world and just help more and more people. Because honestly, like, and during this lockdown as well, I'm not going to get too, because should I go down this tangent? I'm at a fork in the mental road. But I've been getting more quote unquote spiritual during this lockdown. Or not necessarily more spiritual, but considering different things. And I inspiration is a very funny thing. Where does inspiration come from? Some people say inspiration comes from God, some people, who knows? But I feel like the same is true with things like your ability to influence. I think I'm more inclined to believe now that it's some kind of divine gift, that if you have an ability to affect change in people's life, and again, this sounds so egotistical. Like I'm not saying that I'm like
you're a fucking guru.
I've descended to teach you all. I am the best. No, I'm just saying, like, yeah, if you've got the ability to do it, like it's a very special thing, because not everyone has the ability to influence. Like, so it's a very special thing. So if you have that, like, it's very important that you share that, because it would almost be like squandering like some kind of very special gift
if you didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good that you're doing that for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's like you're making the most of, like, because we're just on Earth temporarily, like, but you're making the most of your time on Earth to affect good and affect positive change in people's life. So that's a really positive thing.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, and it's very significant. So
yeah,
well done again.
Well, likewise too, Ashton. It's like, I do remember a teacher at school actually saying to me, this was like in year 8 English. He was like, Olive, I think you'd be a really, really good teacher. And so like going out throughout school, I was always like, oh yeah, I could like be a teacher, like come back and be a PE teacher because I like PE and all this kind of stuff. And like lo and behold, I'm now a teacher. But it's really interesting. I'm like, I wonder if she didn't say that to me, whether or not that planted a seed for me to end up being where I am now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, there's so many different possibilities. But again, as a child, this is going to sound so fucking out there and being like, oh my God, she thinks she's like a fucking guru. But like as a child, I felt like I was kind of put on this earth to like share, like, it sounds so lame, but like a divine gift that I had.
Yes.
Like, but that sounds like, what the fuck is she on? But
do you know what? But it sounds like some people, it might sound weird to some people, but I completely get what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, good.
100%.
And like, I feel like I've really stepped into that recently, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to share. I just want to like make people more aware of the bullshit that is within our industry, because let's be real, there is so much out there, and it's so confusing, and we've obviously and we've obviously had to like navigate it and find our own authentic voice. And I feel like I'm here now and I'm helping people to navigate and wade through the bullshit to empower themselves, basically. So
exactly.
And it is such a tricky industry. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're also doing your personal training qualification, or you've done it?
I was in the process of doing it,
Yeah.
but you know what, like, it's just been so, like, especially the last 4 months, like, I just haven't done anything because I just didn't have the time, I didn't have the emotional energy, I didn't have any, like, so yeah, it was just, I don't really know. I'm gonna ask them for an extension.
For sure.
It, just to and explain why.
Of course.
But yeah, it's something that I want to do for sure.
Yeah, like I didn't touch mine for 9 months because I just didn't have the mental capacity to deal with it. I was like, I physically can't right now. But I'm like slowly getting back into it. But again, you know, delving more into that kind of world within the fitness industry, because obviously, like, you know, yoga and Cali are very, very separate to like PT in their own kind of way. Just again highlighted how much harmful shit is out there, and how many people do things like for clickbait and because they just want to grow their accounts, and they're not really in it to help people. And it's really hurtful, like, to see, I don't know, because you're then like, you're stamped wrongly as like a PT or a yoga teacher or a calisthenics instructor or whatever, you know. You're like, oh, damn it, these stereotypes speak louder than the individual themselves.
You're so right. And there is so much, like, I can, especially in yoga, I can imagine there's so much rubbish out there. Because calisthenics is quite it's smaller than yoga. Not as many people do calisthenics. But even so, like, there's still so much rubbish out there. Like, a personal gripe of mine that I've had for so long is, like, the front lever. I've made a video about this and I've spoken about this before, but the front lever is a very advanced calisthenics skill. If your body's not prepared, you will injure yourself. And I've injured myself countless times following people, when I was a beginner, following people who promised that I could get it in like 4 weeks. So when it was week 3, I was like, oh my God, I'm nowhere near getting this. I need to rush. And then when you start rushing, you start mashing yourself up. And it's just really counterproductive. And like you said, you get all these people with clickbait titles, learn the front lever in 4 weeks, learn this skill in fucking 5 minutes. And it's like, no, like, this stuff takes time. And it's that's another big reason why I started my channel, because I was like, I need to actually give people real information, like, because people can actually hurt themselves and it's not good. Like, I need to be the light in this
in this murkiness that people are putting out. And I'm sure it's the same with you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's like so much harmful stuff. Like, one of my biggest gripes is yoga flow for anxiety. And I'm like, excuse me, no. A fucking 20-minute yoga flow is not going to cure your anxiety at all. And I'm like, since when do you have that ability to give that advice? You are not a mental health worker at all. We are not, as yoga teachers, equipped to give like psychotherapy or anything along those lines. Do you know what I mean? And that's like a massive issue, because obviously the practice of yoga as well, people feel that they're coming into a safe space. They feel they can be more open and vulnerable, so they bring forth their whatever they're dealing with, and sometimes like, you know, start to project or tell the teacher whatever. And I'm totally understanding, I get that. But over the years, I've tried to like establish a boundaries, like, yo, even though I have a psychology degree and even though I'm a yoga teacher, I cannot help you in this regard, like, blah, 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 you know, here are some things that maybe you should do.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give someone dangerous or like even unsolicited advice in that respect.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of like yoga teachers perhaps feel like they need to help people like that, or they've heard this like yoga pose can help them, and it's just harmful to put that across. And I guess you can kind of tie that into when someone's doing like an instructional video on how to learn like front lever or something there, and it's given like a timestamp. It's like, you're not accounting for people's like backgrounds, or you're not, you know, considering the risk of like injury, because like you said, the risk and the injury rate can be quite high if you do it really badly. Or like rush through it. So it's like a different level of consciousness when it comes to like coaching as well, I think. And the real fuckery about all of that is that it's only beginners who are going to get sucked in by this, and that's the biggest fuckery of all, because it's like, it's the beginners who you should be helping the most. So by telling beginners that they can do one yoga session and cure anxiety, or do practice the front lever for 4 weeks and get it, like, you're just putting beginners who need the information the most at the biggest risk. And it's like, you're actually a pagan for that. Like, why are you doing that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so true.
Like, that's why it also annoys me.
And you're filling people with like false hope as well. And then like, okay, if their desired outcome is not met, you know, their anxiety is not completely removed, or they don't get the front lever in like 4 weeks, how are they then going to internalize it? And it's like, well, I'm not cured, I'm incurable, or it's like, I'm never going to do that again. And that's the real fucking shame, you know, because like, if people pursued that movement, that training pattern in the right way, it can have so many profound impacts over them, rather than like, you know, immediate timestamp or like instant sense of like gratification. So you're so right. That actually gave me chills, you know, when you said that. Like, you're so right, because I remember vividly, like, when I didn't get that front lever in 4 weeks, I just felt like, I was like, rah, I must be rubbish. I must be rubbish, because it's like, how could I not have got this in 4 weeks when this dude was telling me I could get it? Like, right? So you're so right. You internalize that, and it doesn't make you feel good. And if your confidence is not set up in the right way, like, you're gonna feel that, and it's gonna have a very detrimental impact on you and your mental health. Big time. I felt that. I remember when I was first getting into, so this is like coming into uni. Also, for all you guys who don't know, me and Ashton like met at uni, hence why we know each other. So I remember like coming into uni, I was fucking doing these like bullshit HIIT workouts. This is why I have an issue with HIIT workouts. These ones, oh my God, it was an ebook by this girl called like Kayla, and it was Bikini Body Guide. And it was this whole thing. It's like, okay, you do these 3 sessions a week, and by the end of the like 8 weeks, you'll have like trimmed down and lost weight, you know, on your thighs and your abs and your arms. And when that didn't happen the first time, again, I internalized that, and I was like, well, I'm worthless then. And that like was around the time of like my eating disorder, and obviously like my history with like my body dysmorphia. So I was like, well, fuck, I better go harder next time, and like dug myself deeper into a hole. So that went to like the other extreme of like, you know, I don't want to touch this anymore. And it's so poisonous to have. And because I was 17, 18 at the time, I didn't have the like consciousness and like awareness to understand what I was doing to myself, like the self-sabotage. So yeah, it's a real, but then again, like that's brought me to where I am now in a really kind of fucked up way, but here we are. So
yeah, everything for a reason, as they say.
Yeah.
But here's the catch-22 though, because it's like, and I don't know if this is the same in your life, but in my experience, I started working out for purely vanity reasons. I wanted to look good for girls, and the videos that I was watching were precisely the ones that were like, burn fat in 8 minutes, build a six-pack today. And it's like, it was those videos that actually got me on this journey.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's always that split in my mind where I think, okay, like, maybe should I title some of my videos like this, or should I present my information in this way, because sometimes this is actually what gets people to take action. So it's a difficult, like, it's almost like a moral dilemma in a way. And it's difficult.
No, I feel that totally, because again, like you, I started doing these fucking hit things for vain reasons, because I wanted to look like a certain way. Okay, yeah, it was tied into like all my mental shit that I was dealing with at the time, but the bottom line is I wanted to do it for aesthetics. And again, when it comes to me eventually doing PT with people, I know a lot of people will want to come to me perhaps for like fat loss or weight loss, and whilst there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, what I do want to kind of like have my niche as is just getting people like strong as fuck, so that they're just harder to kill. That is my goal. So, you know, whether that's a combination of like strength training, mobility training, yoga, it's just going to be like an amalgamation of all of that. That's like what I want, my business to be. Of course, come for me for like fat loss, weight loss, but in the process, I want to make you strong as fuck. So it's, I guess, just like flipping that perspective as well for people, and changing what they want. Someone said to me the other day, I can't remember who it was, they said, whatever content you put out there, you will get that kind of person responding and following you. So if you put out really clickbaity kind of stuff, you're gonna get people who want like the instant gratification. If you put out like quote unquote wholesome like authentic, well-informed, well thought out, empathetic kind of content, that is the kind of people you will get back as well. Which was a really interesting thing to say. I was like, okay, that's, I guess, who my target audience are as well, who I kind of want to have. So
I agree with that. I think I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Big time.
Because like you see certain YouTubers and they it's just like they're within the same space, but they just get hella hate because like they're using all of these clickbait titles and people just don't like them. But then you get like more quote unquote wholesome YouTubers within the same space, and like they just get a lot of admiration. Because like people, the people who like that kind of content will gravitate towards that.
Big time.
So
yeah, man. No, I totally agree. And I guess because this has already taken up quite a chunk of your day, I kind of wanted to finish off with a little bit of a maybe quite a deep question, but it's not that deep. I don't know. My question is, how is your heart? Someone asked me this the other day and I instantly got chills. I was like, whoa. So how is your heart?
How is my heart? Flipping out. How do I answer that?
See what I mean? You're like, it's not just a simple, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. It's like, tell me.
How is my heart? I think at the moment my heart is very it's, if I were to describe it, I wouldn't say it was necessarily warm or cold at the moment.
Okay.
It's kind of in a place of, it's just neutral. I don't know how to describe it. That's a really bad way to describe it. But it's just very neutral at the moment. It's just like, it takes things as it comes. It doesn't, I'm not necessarily like forming attachments with anything like consciously. I'm just kind of it just kind of takes things as it comes. And I don't necessarily feel too warmly or too strongly about anything at the moment, but I don't feel too cold. If you asked me this question like a couple months ago, I would have said my heart was black, because
for sure.
like I was feeling dark. But now it's kind of just in that very neutral space.
Interesting.
How's your heart feeling?
Again, I think a couple months ago, it was actually in a Q&A video, I was like, it feels pretty heavy right now. And this was in like our second November lockdown, where we were like locked down for the month. And I was like, after such a good experience like over summer, where I was able to teach in person and it was sunny and it was warm, it just felt so heavy like after that, because everything had been taken away from me, without sounding too dramatic. I mean, I was still like able to have shelter and food, but what like brought all my enjoyment in was like taken away. If you ask me that now, I'd say it's more hopeful, because it's getting warmer for starters. It's not as dark anymore, and I'm someone who I can't winter, like
oh boy,
I hate winters so much. Like, having grown up in Dubai for 18 years, I didn't even know what fucking winter was. And to not have the sun, I had like pretty bad, like, I'm pretty sure it's getting worse over the years, like seasonal affective disorder. I was like just not able to function. So it's hopeful right now, because the days are getting brighter and longer. This, like, the weather is getting better. I feel like we're out of the shit months of like January. I mean, who knows with like fucking COVID, because we can never tell, but it's also more hopeful with like the direction, I guess, of like my business and everything. So
That's good.
Yeah.
And continue just to see those positives. I know that's the generic piece of evidence, advice that everyone keeps recommending throughout this whole period. Just see the positives.
Like,
come on, guys, let's all band together. Let's just see the positives.
Oh man.
But it does genuinely help. And I know that it can be difficult to see the positives sometimes. So that's why sometimes you got to reframe them almost.
Yeah.
So it's like when you said that things were kind of taken away from you. I noticed that but then you kind of saw, like you said, but I still had shelter and I still had food.
Yeah.
And that was you acknowledging those positive things, which is good, because at least you can acknowledge those. So it's just acknowledging what you still have, the positive things, and working around the negative things.
And I think as well, there's nothing inherently wrong with, feeling negative. If you're like, oh great, I can't go see my friends now. That's not, I think it's the whole like positive, toxic positivity is such a horrible culture to be around, and there's been so much of it on Instagram, and it's being like, oh, you shouldn't feel sad. It's like, yeah, but I fucking should, because I'm just human, and that's just part of life, And I think with everything that this whole like year has taught me is that nothing is permanent. Like, everything is just constantly in flux, and that definitely goes with like my moods as well. So like I don't know, I woke up this morning with having had like a really fucking awful dream. And when you wake up sometimes from that and you just feel like hurt and betrayed. But then you go throughout the day and you're like, that was a dream state, okay, whatever, like I'm out of this now, and I'm now here, and I'm actually having a great time. So
them lockdown dreams hit different, boy.
They so do.
These lockdown dreams are a myth. Like, oh my god. Because I know a bunch of other people have been experiencing that as well. And like, you've just been having some wild dreams during these lockdowns, man.
So shit, isn't it? But again, it's like, it's the reminder of like, okay, where am I actually at now? And just honing in on that. And even when I do have bad days, or I just have no motivation to do anything, I'm like, that's fine, this is what you need right now. So you know what, chill, lie on the sofa, eat some good food, have a hot shower, be more introverted. You don't have to do things at all. And sort of that removal of pressure has helped quite a lot. But weird times. But so thank you so much, Ashton, for coming on the Chat-Uranga podcast with me today. That's
right, thank you for having me. It's been really fun. It's been really, really cool.
It's been an absolute
I've always
pleasure.
wanted to this is like I've always wanted. I think this is my second ever podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I really like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, as does a lot of people now. And yeah, like it's something that I was really looking forward to.
Yes.
So yeah, thank
Amazing.
you again for having me on your platform.
Pleasure. So did you just want to, like, of course I'll put this in the link and like the description and stuff, but did you just want to like shout out your main channels just so listeners know?
So yeah, subscribe to Ashton Fitness, because there's so much calisthenics content that you can learn for free on there.
Yes.
And yeah, I definitely go into a lot of detail, but just tell you, I don't go into too much detail, I just tell you exactly what you need to know. And yeah, it's just a really positive space. Like, everyone in the comments is always having a good time, bigging each other up. So yeah, come join, come subscribe to Ashton Fitness, because you'll like it. If you want to get better at bodyweight exercise and calisthenics. And yeah, follow me up on Instagram. My Instagram is Ashton_fitness_official, because Ashton Fitness was taken, so I had to use one of them long ones. But yeah, and yeah, Instagram and Twitter, Instagram and YouTube are my main platforms. So yeah, follow me up on those. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, but I don't even really know what my Twitter handle is. So so yeah, Instagram and YouTube, follow me up on there.
Beautiful. But yeah, I can definitely vouch for your content just being supportive, positive, and so beneficial. I like, just to briefly finish off, guys, I remember when I asked you for like help with my shoulder, you outlined and gave me so many helpful resources. So yeah, big up.
Of course, definitely had to help Olive.
Yeah,
she's on this divine mission as well.
So
to
true.
Make sure she's sorted.
Wicked. Well, thanks again, Ashton, and we will see you guys, or I will see you next time with my other guests, and likewise with Grace. But yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Awesome. See ya.
Bye.